Hi, I am Dr. Saqib Mansoor and I am speaking to you from my channel Learning Anatomy. You know that I am conducting a series of my lectures on spinal cord anatomy, and this one is about the ascending tracts. So, now let me catch the laser, and yes, this is the list of the ascending tracts. These I have already taught you in my previous lectures. These are the ascending tracts lying in the various funiculi, and these are the descending tracts. Ascending come from downwards to upwards to the higher centers, and they come from the higher centers downward to the spinal cord. Right, this is the pathway of pain and temperature, which is the lateral spinothalamic tract. I will describe it very soon. So the ascending tracts with their positions in the cross section of the spinal cord, white white matter. Posterior funiculus is this, right? Fasciculus gracilis and fasciculus cuneatus. And ascending tracts, lateral funiculus. This is the lateral funiculus, and there here are shown the ascending tracts: anterior spinocerebellar, posterior spinocerebellar, lateral spinothalamic, spinotactal, spinoolivary, and Lissard's tract, or the dorsolateral. So here we are more concerned with lateral spinothalamic tract. This one. Today's topic is this: which layer red laser is moving is the lateral spinocerebellar tract. And then the ascending tracts in the anterior funiculus is the anterior spinothalamic tract and the spinoreticular. And here this labeling is this, where the laser is moving is the anterior spinothalamic tract. So today I will discuss with you at the Learning Anatomy Forum anterior spinothalamic tract and the lateral spinothalamic tract. So these are the spinothalamic tracts, lateral and anterior. First of all, we will discuss lateral spinothalamic tract. Here you will see there are level of neurons in ascending tracts. There are three levels: first order neuron, the second order neuron, and the third order neuron. First order neuron, second order neuron, and the third order neuron. So the first order neuron, or neuron 1, lies in the dorsal root ganglion. This is the dorsal root ganglion. This is the dorsal root, this is the ventral root, this is the formation of the spinal nerve, and this is the dorsal root ganglion. And here lies the neuron 1, first order neuron. And from here, the neuron 2 lies in the gray matter of the spinal cord, brainstem, crosses the midline, lies in the substantia gelatinosa, right? It crosses the midline, right? It here, and then goes up. It goes up, and up here it goes up into the thalamus, where the third order neuron starts, and it crosses the internal capsule posterior limb and the corona radiata and reaches the sensory cortex of the cerebrum, right? So this is the three orders: first, second, and third, reaching ultimately up to the sensory cortex. So this is the pathway of pain and temperature. So let me discuss it in the form of the picture. It's always better to discuss in the form of the picture, because it becomes self-explanatory. And I have enlarged the picture for you. So this was my first order neuron, pain and temperature. You can see below at the right side the first order neuron going up, and posterolateral tract of Lissard form, and substantia gelatinosa, where the second order neurons start. Then they form the lateral spinothalamic tract in contralateral white column of the medulla, and the lateral spinothalamic tract in spinal lemniscus, and Then the ventral posterolateral nucleus of the thalamus. This is the weird third order neuron line. They cross the internal capsule posterior limb, crosses the corona radiata and reaches the sensory cerebrum, right? Sensory part of the cortex cerebrum. Similarly, over here, these are the first order neuron in the dorsal root ganglion, reaches the cells of the substantia gelatinosa, where the second order neurons lie. They cross the midline, right, obliquely. They decussate, cross the midline, they decussate, and they reach the thoracic part of the spinal cord, reach upward, and reaches the lower part of the medulla oblongata, right? These are very close to the outer line, outer part of the medulla oblongata, right? And then there reaches the upper part of the medulla oblongata, right here, and they are lateral to the this inferior olivary nucleus. This tobacco-shaped, crumpled backed appearance is the olivary nucleus, and lateral to that is the upper part of the medulla oblongata. And still lateral to that is the nucleus of the spinal tract of the trigeminal nerve, right? And from here it reaches the pons, and at the pons it lies in the tegmentum of the pons, and from here it reaches the pons. Not this is the pons, this is the level, this is the about in the center and a bit posterior. And this is the midbrain, which lies in the tegmentum of the midbrain, right? So that was a slip of the tongue, very sorry. So here, from here it goes to the thalamus, and from thalamus it goes to the posterior limb of the internal capsule and the corona radiata and the sensory cortex. So here you see the system, the table, very good table, spinothalamic system, which is the anterolateral system, spinothalamic tract. Both the anterior spinothalamic tract and the lateral spinothalamic tracts are known as the anterolateral system. The function is the pain and temperature. The lateral spinothalamic tract contains the pain and temperature sensation, and the anterior spinothalamic tract, the pressure and the crude sensations. So these are the three order neurons. These basic things are the three order neurons. First order neuron in the cell body in the dorsal root ganglion, second order neuron in the decussates and reaches the substantia gelatinosa, and the third order neuron is in the thalamus, VPL, ventral posterolateral nucleus, and from here it reaches and terminates at the cortex. These are the basic things, and I am repeating them again and again. So this is another table from a textbook, right? So this is the sensation. So this we're talking about the pain and the temperature. This is the lateral spinothalamic tract. Receptor is the free nerve endings, right? And first order neuron is the posterior root ganglion, second order the substantia gelatinosa, third order neuron is the ventral posterolateral nucleus of the thalamus. Pathway is the lateral spinothalamic tract with the spinal lemniscus. I will tell you soon how this spinal lemniscus is formed. And the destination is the posterior central gyrus, the sensory cortex, sensory part of the cerebrum, right? This we'll discuss later. So the sensations, painful and thermal sensations ascend in the lateral spinothalamic tract, right? And light or crude touch and pressure send in the anterior spinothalamic tract. Pain, temperature, and tactile information are passed to the superior colliculus of the midbrain through the spinotactile tract for the purpose of spinovisual reflexes. Neurotransmitter at these synapses is substance P. Neurotransmitter, you know the concept of the neurotransmitter, or you can go back to my lecture of neuroanatomy here at YouTube with my channel Learning Anatomy, Introduction to Neuroanatomy. neurotransmitters, and at the topic introduction to neuroanatomy. Axons of the second order neurons cross obliquely to other side in the anterior gray and white commissures within one spinal segment of the cord, rising in the contralateral white column as a lateral spinothalamic tract. This is, I have shown you already, that how they rise and form the posterolateral tract of Lissar. Obliquely they cross and they ascend one segment above. So the lateral spinothalamic tract lies medial to the anterior spinocerebellar tract, right? And new fibers are put up to the anteromedial aspect of this tract while it goes up through the spinal cord. Thus, in upper cervical segments of the cord, sacral fibers are lateral and the cervical segments are medial. This concept is collectively known as the lamination of the spinal tract fibers, and that I've already uploaded in another, with the previous or previous to that lecture on the YouTube channel Learning Anatomy. Fibers that convey pain are located slightly anterior to those carrying temperature. So the during it course through the medulla oblongata upwards, lateral spinothalamic tract lies close to the lateral surface and between inferior olivary nucleus and the nucleus of the spinal tract of the trigeminal nerve. This I've already shown to you here, right? This is the upper part of the medulla, and here this is the inferior olivary nucleus, and this is the nucleus of the um, trigeminal nerve, right? Okay, right? These are the things. Lateral spinothalamic tract is now accompanied by the anterior spinothalamic tract and the spinotactal tract. These three collectively form the spinal lemniscus. Now focus on this spinal lemniscus. Lemniscus is also another word for a broader level of the tract. If the various tracts form and they form a lemnisci, someone can ask you in the Viva question, what are the various form of lemniscus? One of them is the spinal lemniscus, other are the trigeminal lemniscus, and the medial lemniscus, and the lateral lemniscus. So what is this spinal lemniscus? When the lateral spinothalamic tract and the anterior spinothalamic tract and the spinotactal tract, they collectively unite and form the spinal lemniscus. The spinal lemniscus continues to ascend through the posterior part of the pons. This is the pons and this is its posterior part. In the midbrain, it lies in the tegmentum lateral to the medial lemniscus. Right? This is in the midbrain and this lies in the tegmentum lateral to the medial lemniscus. Right? Lateral to the medial lemniscus. So most of the fibers of the lateral spinothalamic tract terminate by synapsing with the third order neuron in the ventral posterolateral VPL nucleus of the thalamus. Crude pain and temperature sensations are probably appreciated and emotional reactions initiated here. Axons of the third order neurons in the ventral posterolateral VPL nucleus of the thalamus take a route through posterior limb of the internal capsule of the corona radiata to reach the synesthetic area in the postcentral gyrus of the cerebral cortex. So what is that synesthetic area? The postcentral gyrus of the cerebral cortex, right here. Here, this is the area, right? This is the postcentral gyrus of the cerebral cortex, synesthetic area. The contralateral half of the body is represented as inverted, with the hand and mouth situated inferiorly and the leg situated superiorly, and with the foot and anogenital region on the medial surface of the hemisphere. Here you could see this is the sensory homunculus. This is a distorted appearance of the human being, and homunculus means from the Latin little man, right? This is the face inverted down and hand also down, right? And represented largely because their sensory supply is more. right? And these are the feet lying medially and the legs lying anteriorly. So from this part of the brain, the information is conveyed to other regions of the cerebral cortex to be utilized by the motor areas and the parietal association area. The function of the cerebral cortex is interpreting quality of the sensory information at the level of the consciousness. Various chemical substances are there in the extracts from damaged tissue that will excite free nerve endings. These includes serotonin, bradykinin, histamine, acids such as lactic acid and potassium ions. Threshold for pain endings can be decreased or lowered by substance P and prostaglandins, but unfortunately, they cannot stimulate the endings on their own directly. So, other terminations of the lateral spinothalamic tract, as is now generally agreed, fast pain impulses travel directly up to the ventral posterolateral nucleus of the thalamus and then relate to the cerebral cortex. This is I have been teaching to you, delivering to you in my previous lecture whole. And the majority of the slow pain fibers in the lateral spinothalamic tract terminate in the reticular formation, which then activates the entire nervous system. You know, the reticular formation is present mainly in the brain stem, especially the medulla and the pons. And this reticular formation is concerned with the consciousness, right? It has other functions, sleep function and the awakeness. So, in the lower areas of the brain, the individual becomes aware of the chronic, nauseous, suffering type of pain. Reception of pain information by the central nervous system is changed first in the posterior gray horns. So, the modulation of the pain occurs first in the posterior gray horns of the spinal cord and at other sites at higher levels. So the analgesia system, what is analgesia? Is the relief of pain. Recently, two compounds with morphine-like actions, very, very important compounds, the happy hormones, enkephalins and endorphins, have been isolated in the CNS. There are four happy hormones. This is a little bit beyond the topic. Four happy hormones, and these are endorphins, serotonin, and oxytocin, and the dopamine. These compounds and serotonin act as neurotransmitters in the analgesic system of the brain, and they may stop the release of substance P in the posterior gray column, and hence they form the analgesia system, the relief of the pain chemically at the natural level. So this was about the lateral spinothalamic tract, and similarly few words about the anterior spinothalamic tract. They are summarized in the table. This is a table. This is the sensations conveyed by the anterior spinothalamic tract to the consciousness. So sensation is the light, touch and pressure. Pathway is the anterior spinothalamic tract together with the spinal lemniscus. Now this is described to you already. Free nerve endings are the receptors. First order neurons in the posterior root ganglion same, and second order neurons, the substantia gelatinosa, same, and the third order neuron is the ventral posterolateral nucleus of the thalamus, is the same, right? So the first order, second order, third order neurons of these lateral and anterior spinothalamic pathways are the same. So the pathways are of course different. This is the lateral one and this is the anterior spinothalamic tract, right? This is in the anterior funiculus and this one is lying in the lateral funiculus of the white matter of the spinal cord I've described in my previous lectures. So destination is the posterior central gyrus and this is also the posterior central gyrus. So anterior spinothalamic tract, axons enter the spinal cord from the dorsal root ganglion and proceed to the tip of the posterior gray column where they split into ascending and descending branches, right? And these branches travel for a distance of one or two segments of the spinal cord, forming the posterolateral tract of Lisar. Fibers of the first order neuron terminate by synapsing with cells in the substantia gelatinosa group in the posterior gray column. Now I have to enlarge this picture as well for your quicker and better concept and understanding, because this for example posterolateral tract of Lizard sometimes gets difficult for some students to understand. This is a sensation of light touch and pressure. This is the first order neuron, which is a dorsal root ganglion. These threads going fibers going upwards, fiber going upwards, and this forms the posterolateral tract of Lizard. Fibers going upward, one or two segments upward in the spinal cord level, going to the substantia gelatinosa, which is the second order neuron. And similarly, the anterior spinothalamic tract in contralateral, anterolateral, white column of medulla, and in the anterior spinothalamic tract in spinal meniscus, then is the ventral posterolateral tract of thalamus, right? This is the third order neuron now. First order, second order, and these are the third order neurons. Pass through the posterior limb of the internal capsule, corona radiata, and the post-central gyrus of the cerebral cortex, right? And similarly, looking at this pictures, this is the first order neuron, the dorsal root ganglion. This is the cells of the substantia gelatinosa. Second order neurons, this is crossing obliquely, and decussations and thoracic part of the spinal cord going upwards, lower part of the medulla oblongata, lateral side of the medulla oblongata, and this is the upper part of the medulla oblongata, and the level of this tract is anterior spinothalamic tract is this is inferior relevant nucleus and between the nucleus of the spinal tract of the trigeminal nerve. And this is pons, and this is lying in the posteriorly, and this is the midbrain. There, this lies in the tegmentum. And going here to the third order neurons going to the thalamus, and then to the internal capsule, the corona radiata, and the postcentral gyrus of the cerebral cortex. So second order neurons, their axons now cross very obliquely to the opposite side in the anterior white column of anterior white gray white anterior white and gray matter and commissures within several spinal segments and ascend in the opposite anterolateral white column as the anterior spinothalamic tract. During the ascent of the anterior spinothalamic tract through the spinal cord, new fibers are added to the medial aspect of the tract. Thus, in the upper cervical segment of the spinal cord, the sacral fibers are mostly lateral and the cervical segments are mostly medial. This is against the lamination of the spinal fibers, which is helpful in interpreting the various diseases of the spinal cord, like the central cord syndrome or etc. We'll discuss that in our applied anatomy of the spinal cord. Anterior spinothalamic tract. During ascent of the anterior spinothalamic tract through the medulla oblongata, it accompanies the lateral spinothalamic tract and the spinotectal tract, all of which together form the spinal lemniscus. So again, repetition. What is this spinal lemniscus? Spinal lemniscus continues to go up through the posterior part of the pons and the tegmentum of the midbrain, and the fibers of the anterior spinothalamic tract terminate by synapsing with the third order neurons in the ventral posterolateral nucleus of the thalamus. Rude awareness of touch and pressure is appreciated here. Third order neurons in the ventral posterolateral nucleus of the thalamus travel through the posterior limb of the internal capsule and corona radiata to reach the synesthetic area in the post-central gyrus of the cerebral cortex. These all things are repeated for you to make them in the form of the notes for you. to help you in the exam, whichever you are taking or giving. So this is a thing. So anterior spinothalamic tract, contralateral half of the body is represented inverted with the mouth and the hand situated inferiorly. The conscious feeling of touch and pressure depends on the activity of the cerebral cortex. Crude localization of sensations is possible only, and the very small discrimination of intensity is possible. This is, I told you, this is a sensory homunculus, the distorted position of the human body. I thank you very much for listening to sympathetically and attentively to my this lecture of ascending tracts of anterior and lateral spinothalamic tracts. I thank you very much. I am Dr. Saqib from my channel Learning Anatomy. I thank you. Subscribe my channel, support me, like me, comment me, and share me. I am the only one, I think, from Punjab working alone on this anatomy channel, and working wholeheartedly and with sincerity. Everything is free over here, and all the students' feedback is required. And do take an interest and promote the channel at our this level, and bring it to the international level. It's already very popular. We have subscribers in thousands, and the Facebook page has 6,000 above followers, and the Twitter and the Instagram and the LinkedIn. We are present everywhere. To follow me, I give the links. If you open me from the laptop, you can pinned up all the links there. And you can find me in the links in the details below.